Okay, so I did promise you last lesson that this was going to be a shorter lesson. So this is the last video. It should take about, an hour to get through these. So I'm excited that we're on time. Um, so I'm excited to read your responses on this. Anxiety and trauma affect learning, so we cannot assume that our learners are coming in ready to learn your content. That is why social emotional learning has become it's becoming so much more important in classrooms today. So yes, we have these standards to teach, content standards, but we also have emotional standards that we have to teach our students. Thinking about what's my teaching philosophy. Do you believe in teaching the whole child, or do you simply just believe teaching your math content or your social science content, right? So this is a big part of who we are as teachers. So these are just some strategies for you to remember. Um, they're all going to sound really pretty and good. So I would challenge you to think about the challenges that will arise. So create a secure and optimistic environment. It does not happen naturally. Help students to understand their emotions. We will talk about that in a minute. Model appropriate emotional responses. We have talked about that with social cognitive theory. Support their regulation. Recognize and respect students' emotions. Just validate them sometimes. Like, if you got a student in a mood, sometimes it came down to, I don't know what happened with you this morning. I would love to talk at lunch, and I understand that you're in a bad mood. This will affect your learning. Do you need to go take a break? Just whatever it is. Connect learning with positive emotions. You want to be that teacher who's happy, who's joyful, who makes lessons exciting and fun. You want to teach those skills to cooperate and conflict resolution, metacognitive activities. And so you're thinking about thinking, right? You're talking about emotions and recognizing other people's emotions. That's meta. And you're building skills to do that. And so these zones of regulations help to just teach emotions so that students can learn the language. So now we're building off of social cognitive theory, where your self-regulation can only come if you have the language to express yourself. So Bandura, yes, was talking about a way of learning, but it's also like a way of being, because I would argue that a lot of frustration in the classroom comes from students not being able to, they just don't have the language to express themselves. So we literally have to give them the vocabulary so that they can tell you, Miss P, I feel frustrated because this morning. Or I feel exhilarated this morning because, we're going to Busch Gardens tomorrow, whatever. They need the language. You cannot assume that they know how to talk about their feelings. We have to teach them how to talk about their feelings. Hopefully they're coming from a home that helps. But even, thinking about how society molds our boys into not talking about their feelings. And so, yeah, I had, like, most of my boys would struggle with being able to tell me what was going on, or even feeling like they were allowed to tell me how they felt. I would never ask, like, we're not trauma investigators, so I would never ask, what happened in the house to make you feel this way, but I would ask, how are you feeling? Talk me through it. Let's think about what we can do to support your regulation so you can learn, Okay. And so that social cognitive theory comes into play with modeling situations so they can talk through it, that metacognition. And so I wanted to show you, this was when my students came in, whether it was my morning group or my afternoon group, we always started with this slide. It said afternoon in the afternoon. And so we always started with a check-in. How are you feeling this morning? And I had all types of the spectrum. And it really helped me to gauge how the day was going to go. I had a scoreboard in my classroom that was tied to behavior, and I had the morning class compete against the afternoon class to see who was getting more points. And so every day I would tell them who the winner was. They would get like a class cheer if they won, and if they didn't, I'd be like super motivating, like, all right, let's get the morning class this time, guys. And they'd be like, yeah. And so that was fun. I think I may have given them like an M&M if they won in the morning. just little things. Okay, but on Wednesdays we did scenarios. And so this was where I would take a scenario based on what was happening with students at that time, and we'd talk through it. So, this was an example of one. Janine has a lot going on at home. Her parents have been fighting and she's not getting much sleep. And this was a pseudonym. This was not one of my students' names. When she comes to school, she knows she's not very zesty. That was one of our character traits that I was trying to get them to implement, and is not putting forth her best effort. Her teacher gets mad at her sometimes, saying, "Stay focused," or "Don't sleep in class." And so we talk about, I had my ball, and I'd say, first think about how you would feel if you were Janine. And so I'd pass the ball around. They would say, I would feel blah, blah, blah. We talk about language. And then this question says, what should you do? And then I had 5 or 6 students pass the ball around and say, well, I would do so-and-so if this was me. And I would highlight answers that worked for me, that I wanted students to really focus on. And then that was a scenario that now they have tools to work through it. And so that was just one example. And so just kind of to summarize, emotions in the classroom, of course, you want to be that teacher that students just can't wait to get into your room. And so you're creating optimistic attitudes, you're drawing learners' attention to relevant aspects of your content, relevant meaning it's relevant to their lives. You're activating inclusive thoughts. So, standards, content-based, emotions-based, problems, real problems, just all of these sources of information you're including. Your enthusiasm matters. And so I did used to do a greeting in the morning and the afternoon. Not one student would go into my class without a handshake, fist bump, or hug. And so when they entered, whatever it was, even some of us created our own little high fives. It was cute. And I would say, "Good morning, Jordan. I'm so excited for you to be here." And so I had eye contact with them. I said each student's name, and we did either their own handshake or whatever they wanted to do. And that student that I mentioned earlier, who his biggest aspiration was to be like his brother, he, no matter what happened, no matter if I just would yell at him a minute before in the hall because of something he did, he would always want to hug, always. And I'd say, "Good afternoon, Octavius. I hope it's going to be a great day. I'm so excited for you to be here." And whether he took that for 5 minutes or whether it lasted for 10 that day, I don't know. But it made him feel like a part of the classroom, because these students often ostracize themselves. And so the greeting is, please do greetings in your classroom, and don't stop doing them literally every day. Like, students wouldn't enter my room without a greeting because they loved it. And I got so many good hugs. And there was one day where Kedrick was holding on for a little bit longer than normal. I was like, "Is everything okay, bud?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just farted." And I'm like, I literally can't right now. These kids are just they're just funny, and you got to bring that joy into your room. And then I don't want to harp on stressful and negative environments, but yes, these are what you don't want. And so read it, just so my video is not blocking it. Read it. Don't be that teacher. Okay, so here we are at the end of this lesson. Think about the roles of emotion and information processing, memory, learning, motivation, behavioral theory, and social cognitive theory. So emotions, they matter. They just matter. I just wanted to drop a midterm 2 plug to make sure that you're not forgetting, you're thinking about it. How can teachers promote motivated, meaningful learning in today's middle school? And remember, these 4 aspects, behavioral and social cognitive, are together, but you just need to discuss 2 aspects from cognitive, 2 from both, 2 from these both. So you don't need 2 for behavioral, 2 for social cognitive, 2 overall, and then 2 for motivation and emotions. Okay, so 6 concepts that you are talking about in your midterm. And please reach out if you are confused, and I will post more ideas for your midterm. You got this on your Nearpod. I love you all. And we will do live lessons after the midterm. Reach out if you need me. I'll be here. Have a wonderful day, night, whatever you're doing. Bye.